Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3 of 1.5 Degrees. This week we're going to be focusing on remakes. Thank you for listening.
Hi guys, welcome back to 1.5 Degrees. I'm Stu.
I'm El.
And I'm Matt.
And this week we're going to be talking about film remakes and different adaptations of stories. We're going to specifically look at some theories on what remakes work, what remakes don't, the elements of them, whether it's down to the writing, the acting, the studio, etc. And I'm going to get the opinions from the guys about what their favourite remakes are, what they like about them, and the ones that they don't as well. So how do you guys feel about remakes? Obviously we're living in a kind of age of remakes being left, right and centre in the cinemas and on streaming services. There are many different stories that have been rehashed in sort of the last 15, 20 years especially. But what is it? Is it down to the genre? Is it down to the writing? Like, what do you guys sort of think about remakes these days?
When we hear that there's going to be a remake made, we automatically want the same tone and the same outcome that we got from the original. Let's take a look at the RoboCop remake, for example. People watched the original RoboCop and they understood it was a very sarcastic, very fun, very black humor comedy, but also with this element of seriousness and sci-fi, and it was a very enjoyable movie overall. There were lots of different bits in it that people could enjoy. But then you make the new RoboCop movie and it was completely dumbed down, and I think that's what killed it in the end. So I think making sure you've got the right tone for your remake and make sure that tone matches or at least transforms properly the tone from the original is key when adapting something or remaking something.
So is it, with like an example like that, is that because of this love and cultural capital that an original film has, which is why a remake then doesn't kind of land on its feet the same way? Because like something like that, like RoboCop has a mass cult audience as well as still like a mass audience, the original 87 version. So then the remake, it's a little bit of a cash grab in my opinion. Is that
you could definitely pose it that way. I mean, what people got out of the original was a very dark look at things like capitalism, things like pulp genre, but things like action, and I think that generated a lot of positive response. And when you say you're going to remake that, a lot of people are going to be expecting the same thing. It's a RoboCop movie. It's not just a guy who becomes a robot in a bubble. You are taking the RoboCop idea and applying it to a brand new movie. That's going to generate expectation. So when it doesn't deliver, or it fails to even try to deliver, you're going to get so much disappointment. And we can absolutely say that, come on, you just didn't try hard enough on purpose, because some of the stuff in the new RoboCop was just simply just not good enough, and then the writers must have known that.
That's interesting. Yeah, the genre is a big part of it, as well as the themes that it comes into. When you take a theme such as totalitarianism and capitalism that the original one pulled off so well in that time, they were during a time of like Reaganism, where there was this whole idea of consumer culture around, and that doesn't really apply today. Today it's about the sort of technological advancements in a world like that. So those themes can be explored in a remake like that. Similarly with the Total Recall remake, which is full-on science fiction, don't get me wrong, but it's very polished and flashy, and it doesn't have that authenticity with stuff like prosthetics and the acting and just the basic plot of being set on Mars, which is what the original one so famously had, and was such a big tie-in with it, wasn't it? I mean, what do you sort of think, Matt? What do you think about like remakes? What about like science fiction and stuff? Is that like one of the more popular genres?
I would say so. I feel like a lot of remakes in recent years has been to do with science fiction movies. But I think the trick to making a decent remake is I think it's down to how well the writers can not just copy but sort of rework the story, but make it still fit, make it still have convey the same feeling that you'd want from that. I mean, a good one to say, I think, is Star Trek. The 2009 reboot. I'll say it's a reboot.
Fantastic.
But they they kept the original. I feel, for me, in my opinion, they kept the original feel of Star Trek, especially the series more than the film, the original film. But they they used those characters brilliantly. The casting was great, but they made the story unique. They gave the characters a new twist, I suppose.
Do you think what worked about the Star Trek remake was that it took what was and expanded on it properly? And that's why you really liked the Chris Pine Captain Kirk, because you took that cheesiness and hamminess that Shatner brought to it, but you actually gave it a little bit more weight with what was at stake. I mean, they did something that they would never do in the original series, and they destroyed the planet Vulcan, was it? And so it brings more weight to it. So I think they took what was and expanded on it, and that seemed to work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. But they also, there's also those, they added things that I think another point in remakes, they'll maybe add things that maybe not work, that don't exactly work as well. I mean I don't mind it personally, but I remember there was a lot of a buzz around the fact that Spock has now got a girlfriend. He's Uhura. I can't pronounce it. I can't say her name properly. But they saw a lot of craziness about, he shouldn't be with. He doesn't have feelings. He shouldn't have those sorts of feelings. He should stay as being his like sarcastic.
So that kind of actually brings it round to what I was saying, because I think the thing with the new RoboCop was that it failed to sort of match up with the tone of the original one. And Matt's saying that the one of the more controversial aspects of the new Star Wars was that Spock doesn't really seem like Spock. And I think that's what people have a disagreement. So I think it's important to keep that original tone and then expand on it without trying something new with the same characters.
Yeah.
So with like themes and the feeling that you get with these new films, Matt, you mentioned the feel that these new films give when you reboot something that's so well loved by audiences. Is this what Disney is doing with their live action remakes? This idea of nostalgia and that heartwarming storyline of characters that are so well sort of regarded in childhood memories, and then applying that to a new audience by saying, here's photorealistic lions, here's Will Smith as the genie. You're taking characters that people say, okay, we do love these, so be careful, but they seem to be pulling it off quite well, I think, in most cases.
They kind of do. I mean, my take on that is a little different. My take on that is they get all the fun tropes and all the fun things from all the Disney movies. Oh, Iago was so cool. The parrot Zazu was so cool. And then they sort of put all of that into a little suitcase, and then they pour gasoline on the suitcase, and then they set fire to the suitcase, and then wait for it, and then they pour melted gold over the suitcase, and then they call it a live action movie.
Right.
So for me, you're watching this weird charred but shiny corpse arise. And that was my review of Lion King.
I get I get you. It's like underneath all that polish and stuff, you're looking at this darkness of, okay, well, this is great, but it's not going to be the original. Come on.
And the thing is, it works as well with the sort of animal things because they're more edible because they've been cooked. Zazu, the casting of John Oliver for Zazu for The Lion King, I think it was good. It worked. It was funny. They didn't give him much to do or say that differed from the original, but they kept the same tone overall. But then you have something like, I don't know, the Beyonce lion Nala, who transformed a little bit there, and they had a little side plot with the female boss hyena as well. They inserted that, which I'm fine with the idea of doing that.
Yeah,
and I'm fine with the idea of doing that to Lion King. I'm not a fan of the execution because it just wasn't properly developed enough because Beyonce needed more time to sing.
Which is why they wrote that original song for the new Lion King, which I think was terrible. And it didn't really fit in with any of the other... I can't remember the name of it, but it fit in with the look and the feel and the overall sound, and obviously it's Beyonce, so you can't sort of critique it too much. Yeah. But then you go, well, this is where we're not interested. You're trying to shoehorn your new song into this for the film.
Yeah.
Was it Spirit, actually? The song?
Something like that. Yeah.
Did any of you guys see the new Aladdin?
No.
To be honest, the only Disney live-action film I've seen is the Jungle Book one.
How was that?
And that was the first one they did.
I haven't seen that. How was that?
I mean, I enjoyed it, but I don't really remember much of the animated film that much. So I don't remember watching it that much as a kid. So it was fine. It was fine.
90%, 95% of the movie is green screen and animation. How as a live action did it do?
Well,
it was all
Bill
filmed
Murray
in
was
some
good.
green screen studio somewhere. That's what I hate about remakes is the too over reliance and oversaturation of the technological aspect of it, where nothing is real anymore.
I mean, everything feels like that scene from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's like video calling his friend and he pushes a button on the Skype screen. It's like, ooh, I'm in Hawaii now.
Yeah,
and that's every CGI movie
just
to
simple.
me now. Just a simple green screen fixes everything, and that you can just clearly see through it. And I think this is the problem I've got with the Disney remakes, is because they're cashing in on the exact same thing that's been so poorly charred and destroyed, but covered in CGI gold. But it's fool's gold.
And it fools a lot of people. That fool's gold. You know, they still get the audiences, and they still make a
how shiny
a fuck ton of money.
Let's see in 10 years how these CGI movies hold up. I'd be excited.
Okay, so you've got the Disney remake sort of pouring in and pouring back out of the Hollywood machine. What do you guys think about horror? That is what I believe is the sort of most popular remake status to build on for studios. So I mean, if you guys have ever seen anything like the 1982 version of The Thing, which was a remake of the 1953 Thing, and then that was remade again in 2011.
2011, that's right. Yeah. So 1982, John Carpenter's The Thing is a very special movie to me, because I think it's the culmination of a few different things that work so well together. First of all, you got the John Carpenter aspect of it. I mean, that guy can do no wrong in the 80s, I think.
Incredible.
Yeah. Then you've got Kurt Russell. I think, oh my God, forget Sylvester Stallone, forget Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is your guy.
He's the man.
This is your
Kurt
man.
Russell is the man.
Because he can portray so little emotions with like this the thing. You know, this emotionality that he puts out. I think he's always great in pretty much everything he does. I can't really think of a bad movie. Even Overboard was pretty fucking good. But then they remade it in 2011, and they go into the spaceship, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead does something that some people have called acting, and and it's revealed. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen this bloody masterpiece. It's revealed at the end it's a prequel to the 1982 thing.
To the 1982 one.
I have issues.
That was a big kind of gamble, really, to do something like that as well, because you've taken a property that is so well loved as others by others with this the Carpenter remake anyway. Already a cult status has been built with mass audiences who are wearing these Outpost hoodies, and you know, people love huskies and all these beautiful things about that movie and the prosthetics. Then you're going, oh well, we've remade it. Okay, let's see how that goes with this CGI fest. You kind of sail through, and then at the end it's like he's chasing the dog with the helicopter. That's how the original one begins.
I mean, look, the biggest part of The Thing, and people, I mean, the 1982 one, and people will absolutely agree with me, the stop motion clay effect. I don't know how they used to make those the creature within The Thing, the 1982 one.
Yeah.
It's just, even now, I watched it maybe a week or two ago. Wow, it's so terrifying. It's so chilling when that wolf begins to shake.
Man.
I'm not a horror fan because I don't really connect to it. It's not something that makes me scared. I'm not necessarily a scared person of horror movies, but that is a chilling scene.
Oh yeah,
when they're in like all the walls are grey, or the snow outside is white. That, you know, they're wearing very pastel-y, sort of neutral colours, and then this wolf begins to shake and emit this sort of tone, and the music swells a little bit, and it's extremely powerful.
There's
to
something
watch.
very inherently creepy about stop motion and prosthetic.
I agree.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It looks very realistic compared to anything that could be done on a computer ever. My favourite scene in the '82 version is the the famous defibrillation scene.
Yeah.
Which, do you know how they did that with the guy when he loses his arms?
No.
They swapped the shot when he gets his arms bitten off by the chest that opens up. They swapped the actor in that one scene with a genuine amputee who had prosthetic arms, which he removed to have his stumps, and they attached these blood squibs to the end of them. Wow. So for that one shot, you see him shooting this blood out of his stumps, and he has I think he has a face mask on to resemble the actor, and then they cut back to the actor for the next scene where you don't see his arms. So it's like the thought and the process that you have to go through to build something like that and to make it look as realistic as you can, really does kind of strike fear into the hearts of the audiences, which is where when you touch something so well regarded like that and you remake it in the 21st century, I think it's very hard to sell that kind of idea. Not so much the plot. The plot is brilliant. Anything about like isolation and stuff like that. I mentioned to you guys that I'd seen The Lighthouse the other day. Big themes of isolation and fear in there, and loneliness. So it only really transcends at a certain moment in time with films, which is my problem with horror movies when we go into remakes. Like, I know they're remaking Fantasy Island at the minute, which is the 70s really naff TV show that came out, which was not really horror whatsoever, but this one is like a Blumhouse production. Okay. It's very dark and kind of tuned in with this whole teen horror vibe, which has kind of died off a little bit now. It was rebrought up with Scream, and then it's kind of sailed away. So yeah, adapting stories, you do have to be careful, because there's just not that much call for it anymore with horror.
I mean, it's important to we remake things that are classics, and we're trying to get something more out of it that we didn't previously. I mean, I've got to bring it up. The 1960s movie Psycho was remade with Vince Vaughn as the lead role. I've got two critiques about this remake. First of all, Vince Vaughn is a fantastic actor in that movie. In that movie, he nails everything about it. He's chewing scenery. He's giving creepy looks. I mean, he's just a naturally gaunt-looking dude. But my goodness, I didn't even know Vince Vaughn could act. Like, I've seen Dodgeball. I've seen all of the family movies he does. I didn't know Vince Vaughn could act that well until I saw Psycho. My second critique of the movie is that it is terrible.
Wasn't expecting that.
It's a shot-for-shot remake, and nothing about it works apart from Vince Vaughn.
But what's the problem with remaking something like that? Is it because, again, this cultural capital that the original has that you can't touch, or is it just because
you can't call it an homage? You can't. I mean, if it's a shot-for-shot remake, you can't call it an homage and then just not really do A, the same things that Hitchcock did, or B, nothing new, because they didn't do either of them. Yeah. They just shot for it, remade it without any new tone, any new meaning, anything like that. And I've watched it more than once. This crazy movie. I mean, Psycho isn't the title of the movie. It's the title of the studio who made it. The Psycho for remaking it. It's insane to me. Because they don't do anything new with it. I don't even remember properly whether or not it's shot in black and white. But if it's not, that's a terrible idea.
No, I don't believe it is. I believe there's actually an emphasis on the colour, to try to really sell that opposite end of it. Like, the blood is extra red. They really kind of pushed it to make it this, polar opposite.
But that's like making a
in terms of how it looks.
But that's like making a Saw movie. But 90% of the movie is he's building the trap.
Yeah.
You've lifted under the covers, and you've seen the burnt suitcase. This is what this is. This is amateur hour, and then Vince Vaughn comes up, and I assume he was just there for a paycheck, and then he just discovered he could act in that film, because I haven't seen him act that strongly since, really. So I mean, enough bashing Vince Vaughn's career, because I love Dodgeball, but so yes, it's sometimes it is a cash grab. Sometimes it is a weak homage. I assume the director who did it, the 1998 one,
Gus Van Sant.
is he sort of? I'm not familiar with him. Is he? I don't know whether he's had a long, strong career, or maybe he was just given some money. He's like, hey, go remake this cheap film. Let's see what you can do.
Well, he did Good Will Hunting.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. He's like really well renowned.
Do you think they made Good Will Hunting in black and white, and then he came along and was like, no, this needs colour?
No, he really pulled it off. He did Milk with Sean Penn.
Okay, well,
Milk,
oh right, okay, so
it's slightly better. Finding Forrester, that was another one with Sean Connery. He's he kind of fell off the kind of beaten path.
So he's Good Will Hunting. That's a surprising one to me, because I think Good Will Hunting takes its time to establish everything it needs to establish, where Psycho just shows up.
Yeah,
he just shows up. It's just like it felt like almost like a student project. They just decided to do it one day. It was like, oh, okay, let's just remake Psycho today. Oh, okay, I've got nothing on.
Yeah, some guys just came up with the idea right off the beat like that.
Yeah. Please watch it if you're listening. Please watch the 1998 Psycho remake if you don't.
I haven't seen it, so I will certainly take time to invest.
Excellent movie.
I'm
not going to spoil it for you.
Yeah. Does anyone know what happens?
Yeah.
So when we go into the kind of, the idea about remakes being this untouchable, element of cinema, there are a lot of remakes of foreign films out there, a lot of American Hollywood remakes. They've really pulled the kind of, wool over people's eyes with this by saying, oh, well, I bet you didn't know this was a remake. One of my favorite films is The Departed, which is a remake of, I believe it's a Korean action film.
Just remind me who directed.
The Departed was Scorsese. Infernal Affairs is the original one. Now, I remember seeing that for the first time thinking, this is the first Scorsese film where there's actual story. There is a real kind of element of...
He's been working for 40 years.
Yeah. I mean
he's now got the handle on it.
He pulled out this really original thing, and he quoted that as well by saying that when he won the Academy Award for Best Film, he said, this is the first film where I've got this, I can really write story. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a sec. The screenplay was not written by him. The screenplay of that film was William Monahan, who's a really well-regarded screenwriter in Hollywood. But the movie's a remake of a Korean action movie. So do we sort of say, well done, Scorsese, you take away the Oscar, but you need to thank someone else for that.
Yeah.
Not your screenplay writer.
Wait, can I ask, do you think it got the Oscar because of the story?
I think...
Sorry, let me just rephrase that. Has he won Oscars before?
Yeah.
I'm assuming Taxi Driver, right?
Believe so, if not
maybe.
Raging Bull.
Right, okay, so, and those don't really, they're just like character pieces. So do you think The Departed was better than his usual character?
There's a lot in The Departed that you can sort of, aim your thanks at for it. I think one is the performances by the cast, although I don't think it took any Oscars away for the acting. But I think overall the sound editing, the cinematography, like it has everything to sort of offer there, and it's a modern day gangster film. So you're taking this trope of the auteur director and you're saying, let's apply this to a modern day audience. But the Infernal Affairs original film only came out in 2002, which was 4 years prior to The Departed.
Oh, it didn't take long to get a remake.
So
It didn't take
was
long
like,
at all. Exactly.
Do you think that was Scorsese's first time seeing another film ever?
Besides his own?
Yeah.
Probably.
It's like, I'm so sick of rewatching Taxi Driver.
Yeah, and
what is this Korean film?
Man, like this is what I've said about Scorsese before, is that he's ran his course dry in terms of filmmaking now.
I think that's where I disagree with remakes. How was it? What did you say? 4 years?
Yeah.
For a remake? I think that's way too short a time to get a remake.
Do you think there should be time?
I think there should be an appropriate amount of time. So obviously it's probably not going to be well known this side of the water.
Well, you say that, but we say that Parasite has just been nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
So yeah, and by the way, Stu, have you seen the original? The what is it called? Infernal Affairs.
Infernal Affairs. Hong Kong, by the way, not Korean.
Oh,
sorry.
Right.
Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's where it originates.
Sorry, Hong Kong.
Not seen it.
Okay, but would you put some money on the fact that it's not as good as The Departed?
Well, this is where audience comes into question. You know, a film has to have a critical reception in China first,
Yeah.
then Hollywood, and then you've got your audience. I think with an adaptation of a Chinese movie into an American one, you have to still have that appeal, which is where I think the directing skill comes in, because you say, okay, this is a gangster movie. Who else can do that except Martin Scorsese? You do horror. You can get John Carpenter.
I just hope they really don't remake the Chinese Ghost Story film.
Yes.
Well, my question is,
Yeah, don't touch that one.
what
That's
if
a
it
great
is
film.
better? Like, what if The Departed is better than the movie that came out 4 years prior, and it's pretty much the same movie? What does that mean for remakes? Like, if you can just, okay, that was good, let me just have a go at it, and mine's better.
It comes back to time, like what you said.
Yeah.
There needs to be, and I do agree with that, there needs to be an established amount of time for that film to build up its own fan base and capital everywhere, so that it can be analysed and just theorised to the death first.
Mm.
You know, before you say, let's change this a little bit and let's make this into something different.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think the director of Infernal Affairs needs a hug.
Yeah.
Can you imagine making that movie and then 4 years later Scorsese smashes it?
Yeah, just comes out of
just
nowhere.
that, and it's like
I would like to know what he did differently in that remake.
I would like to see that as well. Yeah, so like, because if it is a remake or adaptation, like what exactly are you adapting in terms of tone and an idea? Like, if you're taking, I mean, I've seen The Departed. It takes the idea of like this guy who's constantly questioning everything around him and stuff like that, right? He's constantly questioning what side he's on, constantly questioning.
There's
who he
these
can
like
trust.
identity crisis
Yeah,
within
yeah.
his job, essentially.
And I wonder if that actually, if the Infernal Affairs actually speaks more to society. I don't know if The Departed speaks about society. I know Scorsese's quite famous for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it would be interesting.
Not so much in that, I wouldn't say.
No?
Not compared to something like Taxi Driver, which, by the way, is a film that I don't believe should be remade.
You didn't see The Joker?
I was about to say The Joker.
Sorry,
It's half
I stepped on
remade.
your. Oh my god, I stepped on your ladder.
Honestly, you read my mind. You read my mind. That
Wow.
movie. And something like that is interesting as well, because it's that is a hard, story to retell in a solo movie.
Let's not kid ourselves. The Joker is an adaptation, but what it's adaptating is not concrete. Exactly, it's an idea.
Well, it's mystery, which is what I like
Yeah.
about the Joker. There is no origin about his kind of real conception.
Yeah.
It's where does he kind of, sit within that? Which I like it as an original screenplay, of course, but absolutely it pays homage to everything.
Yeah.
And Taxi Driver was the biggest influence on something like that. Much like The Shining was influence on The Lighthouse. I said to you guys, about that.
About the,
Obviously it's not, it's nothing like a remake, but when you pay homage to something enough, you might as well, call it something within that same vein. But then The Shining is like a horror movie, and The Lighthouse isn't really.
But they both address the same issues, don't they?
They both. It's about fear and isolation, and about hysteria from living either on your own or with one other person who's sending you crazy. And The Shining was remade in like the late 90s, I believe, which is the version that Stephen King actually likes, because he didn't like the original, did he?
I forgot there was a remake of that.
There was
I've
a
only
remake
seen the
of
original.
that. It was just a TV movie, but the original one, of course, based on the novel, Stephen King hated because they changed so much, which is my problem with remakes, is this idea of taking an intellectual property and then going, okay, we're going to switch up a few things here because we want our own creative originality to be put in. I'm speaking from the mind of a screenwriter, who would say something like that. Let's just take that story and throw it in. Let's take Ocean's 11 and just throw every major actor in that remake. We got Clooney, we got Pitt, we got Damon, all these guys. The original.
If they had enough money, it'd be Ocean's 40.
Absolutely.
Unless it's the Star Wars sequels, and they're just gonna take everything and then throw it away and start again.
Oh man!
Yeah, but
Throwing shade
still
over here.
call it a
Of
sequel.
course, of course, because it's still got the number next to it. It's still got the little Roman numeral. So
But Han Solo might be in it. Han Solo might be. Yeah, it's back.
Don't go there.
Speaking of taking Asian stories and away from them and America running down the field with it, let's talk about Godzilla.
Oh, wow. 1998 Godzilla?
1998, Matthew Broderick
Wow.
is somewhat finest. Hank Azaria is in it.
Jean Reno.
A bunch of other people.
A lot of B-list actors.
I have a very special connection to this movie because it's actually the first movie I can actually remember watching and thinking, oh, plot exists
Oh, yeah.
in movies.
Okay.
This doesn't have one. But no, the entire movie just speaks to me because it was the fact that it was just so blockbustery done. Like I think it came out, 1998. It was a year before like Independence Day or around that time, and these big blockbusters were literally stomping all over cities and stuff like that. And there's lots of shots of the Godzilla just walks through the Chrysler Building was one of the things. Like the mayor of New York going, I'm mad at this Godzilla. I mean, it's almost disrespectful, really, to Japanese culture.
Oh God, yeah.
It's almost pretty because there's a guy, and I remember in the Matthew Broderick film they show a video of a dude talking to a Japanese man. They like light a lighter in front of his face, and the old man's like Godzilla. And it's sort of like, wow, you're trying to set up tension because I mean. It's such a weird thing to say. I'm doing an homage to Godzilla by putting a lighter next to an old man's face, and he just says Godzilla, and then you just see like a nuclear bomb with like a lizard in the beginning or something like that.
It's the opening credits.
And they recruit like a worm guy, and they never kind of explain why Matthew Broderick is a worm person. Like he finds worms.
That's his job.
He's a worm hunter.
Fascinating.
In modern day society, he's got a really good-looking girlfriend, but he's a worm guy. She's not interested in
They
worms.
refer to him as
He's the worm guy. And I was like, why are you here? Like, what is the point of this? And then, some stuff happens. Godzilla comes out a couple of times, and Matthew Broderick, for some reason, I think maybe Godzilla's a worm. I think that's probably why. And then,
what?
I think that's probably why they recruited him, is because maybe Godzilla's the type of worm. And
okay.
I think like they need the worm guy for the big worm. So Godzilla is just like stomping up and down New York City. I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? It's fun to watch. I mean, it doesn't contain any level of horror or any level of tension. It's just he pops up. Rawr, I'm Godzilla.
Matt's dead, by the way.
I can breathe. I can breathe so hard things set on fire. Because he can't breathe fire in the movie. Don't get me. I've watched this.
He doesn't breathe.
He just
fire.
screams at cars and they light on fire.
And then they come on fire.
Yeah, it's a really important distinction. So that all happened, and it's kind of fun to watch. There's no sense of horror in the movie because it's 1998, and you can't really do anything serious. They're in this mindset, and you've got this film that's kind of a horror, but not really. But then it goes on a bit like we've got to find the eggs. Godzilla's pregnant.
Yeah.
But they say
he's a pregnant worm.
But they go out of the way, first of all, to make Godzilla female, which it never was.
Yeah.
Right? It never was.
I don't
Godzilla,
believe
there was never a female.
I don't know. There's been about 27 Japanese iterations.
Maybe
once.
But it's also self-reproductive. So it just lays eggs and they hatch. There's no male Godzilla.
They say that he's asexual.
Something like, like aproductive or something like that.
I mean, there was that cartoon with Godzilla and Godzuki.
Oh, yeah. Look that up, everyone.
Where you had a little
Look
boy.
up Godzilla's son online. It is hilarious.
Premier Godzilla content coming to you live.
Absolutely.
So they go into the tunnel to find the Godzilla babies, who are just velociraptors.
That's right, yeah.
They're just velociraptors.
One of them's eating popcorn, they slip on the gumballs.
And it's all within this like American mall as well. And it's like, oh, there must be some symbolism here. There must be some. And then I kept thinking, I was like, no, there's nothing.
It's no dinosaur consumerism.
Dinosaur consumerism. The dinosaurs are coming for the malls, everybody. Watch out. The Godzilla velociraptor babies are coming.
Well,
and it's just that they kill it in the end? I don't remember whether they kill it in the end. I think they do kill it in the end. The thing, but only because
it's on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, and then you see the eye close, and it's strangely sad. Like we're sympathizing with Godzilla, we really are. It's not a horror movie. There's no fear in it. All the way through, Godzilla's kind of just been a dude who wants a home.
But in comparison with the 1950s Japanese films, it's super different.
It's so different because it doesn't have anything to say. It's not taking any tone. It's not taking any direction.
He's not a metaphor for any kind of invasion. He's
yeah.
just a metaphor for being a New York worm.
Yeah, right? Like, it's just a big worm in New York. And
with Matthew
in
Broderick.
the Big Apple.
in the Big Apple. The worm in the apple.
He's a big worm in the Big Apple. That should be the tagline of the movie. And yeah, so the
Can
movie,
we remake the poster with that?
what was so optimistic about that movie, what I love so much, is that Matthew Broderick, I think, gets the girl in the end. Hank Azaria,
He's
is
a
still
comic
I think
relief.
he's still alive at the end of the movie. He's a taxi driver. Like, there's a scene where like they're driving through this. The Godzilla's after the taxi. and
Oh,
it's
he's the cameraman.
it's
Yeah.
oh no, he is the cameraman. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. And it's just, and he almost gets stepped on. It's really funny at one point where he comes between the toes. He's like live between this, like and it's really funny. But the final shot of the movie is like a cut to the American Mall where all of the Velociraptor eggs were, and one breaks out. It's like they missed one. Right?
Yeah, they missed
an egg.
one.
And he's like, I'm gonna be in a sequel, and it's just like, who is this
That
movie
never happened.
for? Why would you make something like this? Why would you adapt something like this? Why would you remake Godzilla for this? It's culturally just dead and empty.
Well, and it was adapted again some years later, wasn't it? With the terrible, Gareth Edwards directed film, I believe, with Aaron Taylor Johnson. I
That's
think was in
right,
it, and it was
and,
awful because it was only meant to set up a bigger universe. You know,
yeah,
which
because
is
universe is it's important to get
everything's a
universe now.
universe.
Is
now.
this the one where it's like 80% his foot throughout the whole film?
You see, like a very small amount of Godzilla.
Well, it's
until
really
the end.
important to mention as well that they mentioned that. They mentioned the 98 Broderick movie in that movie.
Oh, do they?
They go, I thought he was back a couple of years ago, like before 2000s, and they went.
But it turned out to be a worm.
No, the dialogue. So that guy says that. I thought a couple of years ago there was this thing, and then the guy says back, no, they thought that was Godzilla, but it wasn't.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
So, it's interesting to see remakes comment on other remakes in this really kind of really smug
that's super
way.
meta.
Maybe
isn't
it's
it?
an apology, right? Maybe because I assume an American guy wrote that line. I think
I'm sure
it was delivered by someone who wasn't. I think it was delivered by an Asian person, but it was definitely about the American. It was written by an American about the American 1998.
If it was the case that it was an apology, should we get a Batman apology for Clooney?
I wanted to
We
bring
haven't
that
had
up.
that yet.
Never.
I wanted to bring that up. I think it'd be
Clooney,
remiss.
never apologise. Don't ever apologise for being gay Batman.
Own that role.
Take that to your grave, man. No. And he did apologise, by the
legend.
way. He did. It's on his Wikipedia.
Several times,
He actually
yeah.
said, like, I'm so sorry for existing.
I
I guess. I don't know.
I was totally going to bring up Batman next because I think we'd be remiss to not talk about any of those Batman movies, any of them. I mean,
Hang on.
we're going to go through the.
You just burned Michael Keaton like that. You just come with my, you just,
And Adam West.
Well-
you did my boy Michael Keaton.
Well, I was going to say that when they made the Adam West Batman, it only went up from there, including the Clooney one. I think the Clooney one still best.
So
Adam West.
I think actually it's funny you mentioned like
That
Adam
is a
West. 'Cause
claim.
Adam West and Christian Bale both do the same thing. They both bring a new tone to an established character. They both add something onto it. There's no point where Adam West nor Christian Bale, say to the audience through their character, "I'm trying something new." This is just a shade of Batman.
But it fits within that time. That's the thing with adaptations, don't they? They have to match the era that we sort of live in and the way that society is depicted and stuff.
So whether or not you like the Christian Bale Batman, it certainly is a good adaptation simply because they are not ignoring anything. They're just adapting it to the time frame it's set in, and it's definitely to the tone it is set in. The first Christian Bale one was like 2006, 2007. Maybe
2005 maybe.
Somewhere around that area, which is obviously a cultural time of you'd look at like I said before, post 9/11 American sort of emptiness, and we need that reality and the bit of anger and stuff like that. And I think that played really well, especially at least in that character, right? So yeah, I'm okay with that as an adaptation. I'm not a particular fan of the Christian Bale trilogy. I think that they're fine adaptations. They do what they do, but I like the comic book stuff. So I don't know what you guys think.
That's good. That's interesting. So, I mean, in terms of remakes and adaptations, then, what are your guys' sort of final thoughts on where we stand with this constant sausage factory churning out remakes? Like, where do we feel? Is there any films that you guys would have not wanted to be seen remade? Any films that you would like now to see be remade? I mean, what do you guys sort of think as your final thought?
I don't think they should ever remake the Lord of the Rings films.
The films?
They can't touch them because, I mean...
Well, I've got some news for you, buddy.
Stop it.
Amazon's coming.
Stop it. No.
It's going to be fine.
No, because I think they're pretty much masterpieces as they are, and going by what they did with the Hobbit movies, I can't see them doing the Lord of the Rings again the same way, because in the Hobbit they used a megaton of CG unnecessarily when in the Lord of the Rings a lot of like the orcs and things were all costume makeup. A lot of things were prosthetic, and then the Hobbit comes along and
well, I've got to say about the Hobbit
like,
though, we slate the Hobbit trilogy, we do this.
The second movie is the best one.
But I'm a guy that goes in and I want to see barrel riding. Right,
that's the
my
best
thing.
one. That's the best part.
That's the only reason I sit down for any movie is to see barrel riding scenes. And so when I saw all dwarves running down this river in barrels and like bouncing all over the place, taking enemies out, I felt one with myself.
I am complete.
I now want to climb into a barrel
because I mean,
roll into a river.
We can talk about dragons, we can talk about adventure, we can talk about rings, we can talk about magic.
Sorcery.
It's about the barrels.
It's
Jesus Christ.
The Hobbit wins in terms of adaptation because of the barrel scenes.
Yeah.
So is that your final thought? Just chuck in some barrels with these movies. Chuck in some fun and action and slapstick.
If we take out the disingenuous aspects of remakes, where it's just for the the cash grab or that, and you understand the tone you've got when you're remaking something. Let's say if you're remaking Batman, you have to understand the tone, what people are wanting from it, what people are expecting from it. It's a pressure. It really is a pressure that directors must feel at some point. I mean, even Spielberg must have been like, okay, well, you've got this character. You've got to look at the source material. You've got to look at everything about it. But I think if you have passion for it, this is a special thing with remakes and adaptations. If you have passion for the source material and you put that passion within your remake or adaptation, even if it's a bad movie, it can still come off really good.
Absolutely.
I mean, you say what you want about like the Pikachu movie, Detective Pikachu movie. There's a lot of passion in that movie.
And that one was very clever because it took everything that people loved and it just dialed it up to 11. It was like, let's take all these characters and let's take these elements and let's take the first movie and throw in this plot and then just churn out this brilliant story where they go, okay, this is just fun and enjoyable. It's not trying to be anything that it's not. It's very... on the cuff. It's like you get exactly what you pay for with something like that. That's what I love about something like Ready Player One, where they just take all these different elements and homages from past loved cult films and they say, we're going to give you dribs and drabs of this, but it's also going to fit into this new storyline, this adapted storyline from a book.
A novel.
And then they go, this is the part where you need just those little bits to capture your audience. When you remake something, I think absolutely it can work, only if there are subtle nods and subtleties to the the draw of something. Don't overdo it. Don't just chuck this entirely new storyline at the wall and see what sticks. You still need to adapt the beloved tale, but then there are some things where you go, this is physically untouchable. But Hollywood will dare to do it, and any country may dare to do it, but Hollywood has this idea of, well, if we Americanize these movies, whether they be foreign or domestic properties from years ago, someone will still watch it. There will always be an audience for a remake. Look at the Halloween remake that came out a couple of years ago. Massive draw on that, going back to John Carpenter. There's so much love of that franchise, and then they streamlined it, didn't they? Because they cut out all of the Halloween films in the middle and just said there's this one and that. I think that was quite a good idea. That works because a lot of franchises, when you remake something, they've kind of just fell off the map. So you need to go, let's ignore that, and then let's just keep it at this simple one, so that if people want to be introduced to it, that's what you've got. So just sort of keep it subtle and don't oversaturate.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt?
I think so. I mean, I agree. I agree with both of you. I think for me, it's just timing. I think, it needs to be a certain amount of time before it becomes appropriate, I think, to remake something, especially something beloved.
I will sort of question that, though, because what if another auteur released right now The Lighthouse? What if he remade that film? Different actors.
Well,
his take on The Lighthouse.
Like
his
Christian
take on
Bale
a journey of loneliness and...
it's tough because Robert Eggers, the director, has already, with his one movie, The Witch, has managed to establish himself as this kind of alternative, unconventional horror filmmaker, which is absolutely what The Lighthouse is, but it's not as untraditional as The Witch was. It kind of follows the standard Hollywood narrative a little bit, but there is this open door with all these ideas that it goes into. It goes into Greek mythology, and it goes into the Shining homage, like I mentioned. So directors should stick to their guns, but also maybe do the one-off, trying something different, because you never know what other hidden talent you may have. If you take if Scorsese did a slapstick comedy film,
I'd pay every penny.
I would watch it. I would love
because
to see what he could do.
Because it's science, right? That you're
experimenting.
You're putting chemistry together. You're putting things, and you never know. Like.
But the Tarantino and Star Trek thing, no.
Well,
yeah, but you're going to pay to see it, right?
Let's hope it doesn't
watch
happen.
it.
Yeah.
Let's hope it doesn't happen, but we will still pay money for it.
Yeah.
I hope it's every bit as terrible as I imagine it to be. I hope everything is crazy. I hope the movie is just two people in a car who are attempting to avoid getting beamed up. I literally hope. I hope.
Talking about space cheeseburgers.
Yeah, I mean, I actually hope that Brad Pitt's character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood gets thrown into the future, into Starfleet, and he's got to navigate Starfleet. Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely. I hope the bride makes an appearance in Starfleet. I hope I hope every Tarantino character.
Yeah, Mr. Blonde.
I hope it's a musical. I hope
Basically, Tarantino, do whatever the hell you want because you're Tarantino.
We don't have a lot of auteurs right now, and we don't have a lot of bright, shiny new things that are coming out that doesn't require somebody to wear a cape. So,
why not adapt something that's different from your forte?
Yeah, everything is just big battles, and less battles, more barrels, is what I'm saying.
Fantastic.
That's the new slogan for our podcast.
That is incredible. Well, I really appreciate you guys going into some great detail and theories with those.
Yeah, it's been good.
Thanks again for listening to 1.5 Degrees. You've been listening to our Remakes and Adaptation podcast. I'm Stu.
I'm El.
And I'm Matt.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you again next week.
See ya. Bye.
Thank you.